and welcome back to another Facebook Live session from Eduro Learning. Today's topic is highlighted for parents. So if you are a parent or you are a teacher who is often talking about technology in our digital lives today with parents in your classroom, this session is for you. The theme for today is about how is learning different today? Why are we using so much technology in the classroom? Why does learning look different today? Kind of what's going on. And as usual, I have my notes here, so you will see me looking down to check on my notes as I go through the conversation today. But you can see if I hold this up that I have 5 key themes that I think make learning look different today, kind of what's going on in the world. So I'm going to go over those 5 over the course of hopefully exactly 20 minutes. And I see that Jeff is here with us, so thanks, Jeff, for joining this morning. Before I start with my 5 items that are on this piece of paper here, I just want to talk really briefly about why learning is different today and kind of what that means on a broader scale. And I think all of us can resonate or reflect on or recognize that technology is really a much bigger part of our lives today than maybe it was when perhaps I was in school. We're using technology on a regular basis, like this Facebook Live is a perfect example. You can learn from people for free on something called social media from your home in ways that was totally not possible when I was in school. So there's this societal shift with technology that needs to be addressed and recognized in schools as well. And that's what's happening with technology today. For really younger kids who are going into kindergarten or elementary school, who knows where technology is going to be by the time that they graduate? So this concept that we're preparing students for jobs that don't exist yet, and we don't know what those jobs are going to be, is both frustrating and a reality of the situation that we're in. So I think you see lots of technology in schools today. At least I'm a passionate advocate for technology in schools today because I want it to represent, I want it to be the way the world is outside of school. So the stories that I'm going to share about my 5 items here will be both about my experience as a teacher, but also my experience as a learner, because I also really believe that every day I have an opportunity to learn something, and lots of my learning happens in digital spaces. So that's what's going on in schools today. We're tapping into the power and potential of learning in many different spaces to reflect the reality of the world today and the potential future that we really can't imagine. So here we go. I'm going to start with my number 1 item there, which you can see, hopefully, my handwriting is legible. It's not about content, it's about understanding. When I was in school, it was all about passing a test. And every time I learned something new, I knew that I had to study and pass a test, and I wouldn't remember anything really at all after the test was over. And that I can remember sitting in the library in elementary school in grade 3 and taking tests. I don't remember anything about what was on that test. I don't remember anything about what was learned. I just knew that I had to pass that test. And that carried me all the way up through university, and I'm really great at memorizing and being able to regurgitate back facts in a test situation because that's what I did in my entire school career. And I'm sure many adults can resonate with that or remember that same kind of feeling. So today it's not so much about passing a test because we can Google that content. We can find that content online in a heartbeat. We have that content basically in our pocket. It's about making sense of that content and about demonstrating understanding that we can take the content from lots of different areas, make connections about that content, and then demonstrate our understanding in new and unique ways. I kind of have a little phrase on here that I like. Demonstrate understanding through purposeful creation in new contexts. I mean, I think that's what we want to see students do. If we're learning about something like influence, which I did when I worked at ISB quite a number of years ago, we might learn about influence through lots of different areas and then demonstrate our understanding through a unique product that we create at the end of the unit in a new. So we're making sense, we're making meaning, we're making connections between our understanding, and we're demonstrating what we know in new and unique ways. So it's not about memorizing content, it's about making understanding. And I agree totally with Scott that we want teachers doing the same thing. Absolutely. So that's my number 1. It's not about content, it's about understanding. Number 2, learning is always on. That's the thing probably that excites me the most, is that we always have the power and potential to be learning. So kind of the way that I'm looking at this is outside of the classroom, kids are learning a ton. They're watching YouTube videos, they're watching tutorials, figuring out how to do things for themselves, becoming experts in areas that they're passionately interested about, and then often sharing those things with an audience that they're building in those same social media spaces. That to me is individualized learning. I want to learn something, I have a passion about something, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to keep trying until I'm great at it. And then in the end, I'm usually so proud of myself, I want to share it with a wider audience. That feeling is the feeling we want to have in our classrooms. So if kids are doing that outside of the classroom, the expectation for what's happening in the classroom is going to be similar or higher, right? So the idea that we can tap into this kind of always on learning is in the classroom demonstrated through something called blended learning. And the idea behind blended learning is that we can take our classroom and make it virtual. Everything that we do in our face-to-face setting, we can do in a digital setting. And we can do that through tools like Google Classroom, which is probably the most popular one right now. There's lots of tools that I have used in the past and that will be used in the future. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is that teaching and learning can happen outside of the restricted four walls of our classroom, or hour length of our lesson or daytime of school. So learning can happen anytime, anywhere, as long as students have access to a device and the internet. And you see that happening in schools now, especially where schools will be providing students with one laptop per child. So that's a one-to-one program, and that means that each student in the school will be given a laptop so that they can work in school, but they can also work outside of school, which is really, really exciting, because I can't think of very many careers where you don't need to use technology in some form or another. So giving children access to those devices provides them with the ability to kind of manage their time, to be able to learn in lots of different spaces, and to be able to connect and share their learning with others. So that's number 2, always on. And we're going to move on to number 3. Learning today is about creating, not consuming. And I know that probably everyone watching is really familiar with textbooks and remembers having had their lessons or their units planned out by chapters in a textbook and reading the questions at the end and answering the questions. Things are really different today. We don't have to be limited to a textbook, the content that's provided for us in the textbook and the prompt questions that are at the end of the chapter. It's not about writing an essay that only our teacher's going to read. It's about creating something interesting, new, and unique, and being able to communicate your understanding to a wide variety of audiences. So I think some of the examples that I really love when I think about kids creating things that demonstrate authentic understanding are things like students using Minecraft to create, let's say, the Silk Road, a virtual world that they've been studying in school, and now they're creating the virtual version of that they can actually physically be in. And as they're creating that space, they're learning about what happened on the Silk Road. And to demonstrate their understanding, they have their physical or virtual version of the Silk Road that they can screencast and record and play back, so that they can explain to the teacher everything that they built in their Silk Road. So to me, that's like such a real, fun, engaging, and meaningful way to demonstrate your understanding about, let's say, the Silk Road. Other examples could be having kids, and I love this one too. That one was from Alex Gunther. He's a humanities teacher, and he's my husband. He's an awesome teacher. And I have one from Rebecca Madrid, who's a former colleague from YS that I also love. She does higher level history, and in that particular class, in this scenario, she was teaching in Japan, and she had to teach the Civil War. Well, that's kind of distinct from daily life in Japan, right? So how do you kind of make that real? How do you make that authentic? How do you make that engaging and interesting for kids? Hi, Emily. Thank you for joining us. One of the ways that she did it is she had the kids take on a persona of someone from the time period, and she had each of them create a Twitter account in that persona. So both during class and outside of class, They were essentially role playing their reactions as these historical figures in the Civil War. So they were connected both inside and outside of class and constantly kind of thinking about how they would feel, think, react, do in this Civil War context. So this idea of interacting with content in a way that's a bit more creative and interactive is that kind of concept of creating, not just consuming. And then, of course, we have kids doing great things like making collaborative videos, using YouTube Editor to be able to upload your video straight to YouTube and then share the video that you create with other people so we can all edit each other's videos. Like, those kinds of things are really amazing to me, and I think that's what I mean when I say creating, not just consuming. We want kids to actually be producing something that's authentic, interesting, relevant, engaging, and reflects their learning in ways that is meaningful to them. So that's my first three, and they're all, I think, really connected. I'm just going to re-summarize them again. It's not about content, it's about understanding. So that idea that we're not just regurgitating content, we're demonstrating understanding. Then learning is always on. It can happen anytime, anywhere. And the third one, that we're creating content. We're not just consuming content. So we're not just vessels to be filled. We can actually create content that's really interesting and worth looking at outside of the classroom. And that brings me to number 4, unintentionally but very smoothly. Sharing is big. This idea that we want to provide students with an authentic audience for the work that they create. When I was growing up, all of my work was just seen by my teacher. And I didn't really, I wanted to do a good job, of course, but there wasn't any kind of external motivation or any kind of audience that I was building for the work that I was doing, because just my teacher would look at my work and then grade it. So this idea that we can provide students, we can help students build their own authentic audience for the work they create by giving them purposeful work. An example could be, very often we have students read and reflect on reading. It can be in the form of a book review or an essay about a book or just anything that has to do with their reading from a book. Well, instead of writing that on a piece of paper or printing it out and typing it up and handing it in to the teacher, you can put those reflections on your reading in spaces where people today are putting reflections on their reading. Things like Goodreads, or even an Amazon book review, or even writing letters to the editor about a book that has to do with something going on in the world today. So this idea of providing purpose and audience for the work that students do, that to me is very motivating and engaging for students, and I think provides an authentic purpose for why we would be doing the work that we're doing instead of just because I told you so. I do want to point out too that this is the way all of these things, but this one in particular I'm thinking is the way that kids are interacting with each other, right? They're on a daily basis sharing little bits of their lives in lots of different ways, in lots of different spaces, and they're used to having that interaction and community and building that kind of network of sharing with their friends. So that leads me to number 5, interaction and community. And I think there's this kind of, I don't want to say resentment, but it's the word that's coming to mind right now, but this kind of uncomfortable feeling about how much time that kids are spending in social media spaces. And it's hard for us to reconcile that that's the social space for them today. That's the hangout space, because we don't really give them a lot of opportunity to hang out in real life, in face-to-face environments. So that's the social space that they're hanging out in today. And their social lives are happening there, but so are their learning lives. They're kind of learning in this kind of peer-to-peer community. They're learning from others in social spaces where interaction and building community is an essential component of the learning environment. I'll give you an example, my own personal example. I'm learning how to be a power lifter. I love training, I love going to the gym, and I love getting strong. And I am very fortunate to live in a place where I can have a coach regularly train me. My coach is awesome. I love working with him, but I know I have lots of other opportunities to learn. So I follow competitive powerlifters in lots of different spaces. I follow them on Instagram. I follow them on Snapchat. I watch their YouTube videos. I'm a member of many different Facebook groups. In all of those spaces, I am like pretty much literally learning every single day. not only am I learning from the content that I'm consuming, but I'm learning because I'm able to post, for example, form videos of myself lifting and ask for feedback. I'm able to watch other people's form videos of them lifting and see the feedback that other people are giving and see how I can apply it to myself. I'm able to give feedback to others. To me, this environment of interaction and building community around content that everybody in this group is interested in is the most powerful way that I can learn. Yes, I love my face-to-face training sessions. They are awesome. I'm not belittling them. They're very important. Obviously, I wouldn't be getting any better if I wasn't able to actually lift any weight. But what's really cool about all of this is I could do all of this without a trainer. So this interaction, this community, this audience that I'm building for all this learning that I'm doing is happening in virtual spaces. And that's the kind of experience. Sorry about that. I guess my internet went down for a second there. Hopefully I'm back. Can somebody just give me a little thumbs up so that I know you can hear and or see me? One of the joys of living in Thailand is sometimes the internet is on and sometimes the internet goes off, and we just work through it. But luckily, that was 15 minutes, and I did go through all 5 of my items, so I'm just going to summarize them for you really quickly, just so that we have a wrap up to the end of the video. But I do want to just really highlight, this isn't just about making school fun for kids. This is about making school real for kids. We talk all the time about wanting kids to put away devices and not be distracted and learn how to manage their time better. But I struggle to understand how we can do that if we're not teaching them in an environment that reflects what their real world is. So while all of everything I said sounds like lots of fun and games and all about engaging students in new and creative and unique ways, what it really is about reflecting the real world. This is what society looks like today, so this is what learning should look like today. I mean, to me, that's like kind of the simple, basic piece of this. So when I go through these 5 things, I would encourage you to think about how that's happening in your everyday life, or how you see that happening with your child or the students in your classroom. Because if those things are happening in their outside of school life, they should be happening in their school life. So how is learning today looking different today? The first way is it's not about content, it's about understanding. So demonstrating your understanding, because we can Google the facts anytime. Second thing is learning is always on. We don't have to stop when the class period ends. We have access to technology and devices that let us learn anytime, anywhere. My third one is it's about creating, not consuming. So yes, we're going to consume some content, but the idea is to do something with that, not just be a consumer, but be a producer of content too. My fourth one is sharing is big. Building an authentic audience is a powerful and purposeful way to demonstrate your understanding to people who actually care about what you're learning. And then finally, interaction and community. Being able to share your learning, get feedback on your learning, and provide feedback for others is how we build community. Teachers are experts at doing this in a face-to-face setting. This is about bringing that to life in a digital context. So in all of these 5 ways, I think we're making school real for kids. This is why your kid might have a laptop. This is why your kid might be using a laptop a lot in school and being asked to use a laptop for homework, because we're making learning real. All right, that is my talk for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll have another one next week. I think Chrissy will be leading that session next week. There's lots of great freebies from today's session too, so I want to share those in the chat in just a moment. I hope you guys enjoyed that and found that interesting. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas, anything you want to share with us, please drop them in the comments, because we want to keep making more videos like this for you, and we want to make what's interesting for you. So we'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, and we'll try to make great content for you. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. I hope you guys have a great day.